All right, well, guys, we are live. We are back, joined by my man Greg. So excited to have you on, dude. I don't want to steal any of your thunder, so just get quick intro. You know who you are, what you do, company, where you're based out of, all that good basic stuff.
Sure, Eric. Thanks for having me. So Greg Parkhill with Brushmasters. We're on the East Coast here in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I've been painting for 15 years. I've had Brushmasters for about 8 now. So it's been a while with that company. Um, right now we're up to 24 employees. We have 9 trucks on the road, a lot of in-house staff, and then we also subcontract some stuff as well. But primarily residential, small commercial stuff. But residential is our main niche, is what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Amazing. No, I absolutely love it. And if you wouldn't mind going through it, you have a very interesting story, right? Where I think the typical painter origin story is like my dad did this, or I just kind of got thrown into it somehow. And you have a really interesting story. I know it's a little personal, but if you want to kind of go through your story, like how did you get here? And your company has grown really pretty fast. So if you kind of want to walk through some of that, I think that'd be really valuable.
Absolutely. So I started painting at 15 years old. My uncle, believe it or not, was a fly-by-night painter. So I was helping him like pay for a wedding at the time. I think at that time I was making like $65 a day, and he was like, "Yeah, man, that's great money." And I didn't really know, nothing about making money, at 14, 15 years old. Like, and
Sure.
at that time, probably $65 a day was probably pretty okay for somebody my age.
Yeah.
So I did that, man, for that summer here and there. And like my first day, I kicked paint over into the carpet. On my first day, I learned how to clean up paint off the floor. So that summer, then my uncle got married. I got beat out of like $500. And that was the end of my small painting career at about 15. And then I was in the restaurant business. I washed dishes, cooked, did a bunch of stuff there. And then when the recession hit, like '09, the restaurants started to close up. Movie theaters were changing. Things were changing for people. So I'm like, damn, what am I going to do? So I'm like, I kind of know how to paint. I didn't really know much. I knew enough. So I
You knew
started putting
a little bit about how the business functioned, how to do some of the work, and that you could get a couple projects.
Well, I knew how to clean paint up off the floor, and I knew how to roll, and I could pump fake it, right? So I started putting ads on Craigslist, and I always did little painting here or there for people because they knew like that I had done that. So even the restaurant I worked for, they'd be like, "Oh, could you paint this?" So
Fair.
a little bit here and there. So I did the Craigslist thing. Started out in my car. With $65 a room, I would advertise because that's
Wow.
my daily my wage.
Sure. That's crazy.
And then I'd get to the estimates and like I'd be like, yeah, look, man, this is gonna be about, like 250, or I want this or I want that. And again, at this point now I'm like 18. So again, I'm making more than I need at 15, but I'm not making what guys are charging today, obviously.
Right.
But back then, dude, 250 a day, 300 a day, like that's good. I mean, even today, that's
For
good
an
for guys.
18-year-old, I'll say even today for an 18-year-old, shoot,
Right.
it's not
And
bad.
that was cash money, right? So we, fake it till you make it. So I did that, and just built on that, man. And like throughout, I didn't go to college, so just did painting. So by the time I got to 21, I had the painting business. I had a couple guys working for me. I also had a detail shop locally. So I always had a passion for cars. So I wanted to get out of painting. And so I had guys working for me. And one day I'm driving from a painting job to my detail shop. And it's like 8 a.m., beautiful sunny day in September. Like, I got a nice fresh polo on, 21, and new truck, big rims, feeling good. You know what I mean? Man, and I'm in traffic, I'm moving and grooving, and I got a light, and out of nowhere, this guy is like running across the street. So all in an instant, I hit the brakes. I swerve to go into the grass to try to get around him. He keeps moving. And I felt like a little, a little thump. And I'm like, I must have just ran that fucking guy's foot over. And I'm like, what an asshole, running out into traffic against the light. Like, cars are coming. There was people in front of me. So it's not like I was the only one. So I stopped, I turned around, I stayed, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I just hit somebody. Like, what the fuck? And I look at my truck and it was just a mirror. So like the passenger side mirror is what got the guy, kind of hit him in the back of the neck. Fucked up situation, man. It was terrible. Long story short, they said it was my fault. I wasn't in control of the vehicle and that I was speeding. Go to court, fight for like 5 years. And as I'm fighting, I'm building this painting business, right? So, I'm got guys and, going to court and, and then I'm getting nice shit and I'm having more money. And it was just so weird to take a ride through success so
While
young.
dealing with that for 5 years. That's a long time.
Right. And then being drugged through the mud, right? So people always talk about getting screwed by contractors. So like I got screwed left and right by lawyers, like, we need this, we need that. And then the story would change, like, oh, well, now we need more. It was just the whole ride. Like it's in every industry, like bad people, like those bad seeds. So anyhow, man, go to trial. Cause at that point now, this is like 2017. I'm feeling myself, I have like 8 guys, we're killing it. And I go to trial, man, and I lose. And the judge smoked me. She was like 5 with an 85. And they left me out on the street for about 9 months because I had an issue with my lawyer. He took some money and disappeared. And so 9 months I fought and again continued to build a painting business to prepare to go to prison. Sat in prison for 18 months and continued to run that business from prison. We didn't do much, in those 18 months, but it stayed afloat. I was able to appeal my case. I ended up getting kind of a bad deal from the judge. She didn't let me use certain things that I could have used to win the trial. So they reversed it. They let me go. And that was it. I came back home to my painting business and kind of started again from that trunk of the car phase where we didn't have guys. I had one van, maybe like $12,000. And I didn't even really want to start a painting business again. I was just so exhausted from building it, losing it, and just going through all that shit. So I'm like, I'm just going to work for somebody or like whatever, just chill. And that didn't work out that way. Like, that's just not who I was. So there was a dude that helped me kind of oversee things while I was away. And he and I kind of teamed up when I came out. And I kind of just took off with the sales and the marketing and blew up the brand itself that I kind of just left with a heartbeat while I was gone. And I think, by the time I met you, I was a year and some change in, we were already at like maybe 1.8 in sales. And you were maybe my like 3rd ad agency for Facebook.
Oh yeah, I remember you have some horror stories.
I did. Absolutely. So, there's many things that I've learned throughout these 15 years, not only in painting, but, being drugged through the mud, other businesses, the restaurant business, the detailing business, prison, bad experiences with bad ad agencies, lawyers. I mean, you name it, man. Like I'm like a well-polished, stone where like all sides I've seen like just some raw shit. So it gives me an advantage, right? Which was why I was able to build things so quick. So I've been home now since, I guess it's been a little over 2 years. So from 2 years, not having really anything, but literally like 12 grand, little meat wagon van. And, like a guy who was like, look, I'll put 1,000 in ads out for you. And I'm like, all right, man, cool. We'll try this. We'll do that.
Yeah.
And now we're at, altogether since I've been home, I'm over 3 mil. Since I've been home.
And you're pacing to probably do about that this year, right?
I'm going to do 3 this year. Yeah, that's my goal, is to do 3 this year. I really wanted to hit it last year. It didn't work out that way. But this year I've ironed out a lot of processes, and you know, all this was new to me. You know what I mean? Like I never made $1 million in revenue before, and
Yeah.
and there's no real preparation for that. And then to repeat the process, and now on my third year already doing it now, and we broke 1 million in quarter 1. So that wasn't even, we did it quick. Um,
Yeah.
so it's rewarding. It's challenging. There's obstacles. Every day is, it's new, right?
A little different.
So yeah, and when I get to that third millionth dollar, it's going to be different, So
There's always new
um,
obstacles.
of course, of course. So that's kind of the breakdown of like the past 10 years. I'm 31 now. So I was 21 when that car accident happened. I'm 31 now, and I would never think that after going through that I'd be where I am. So,
So
it's cool. It's a
there's a
cool.
lot of interesting stuff here, and I want to dive into a couple of them. The one that I'm so curious to know, just for my own fascination more than anything, how in the world, even if it wasn't a big company, it was just a few projects, how in the world were you running a painting business from prison?
So a lot of my stuff that had come through was actually commercial stuff. So you remember me saying I primarily do residential.
Yep.
Just had happened where some bids had got, put out before I went away. And, it was like one was a condo building down at the beach. So it was an off season. So like it was in the winter time. I had an office building that came up that I had previously done work for. It was somebody that I knew. But like those jobs and like a couple residential ones, I had like a handful of them. It was like maybe like 125K. It wasn't anything crazy, but in prison, man, that's like solid.
Yeah.
Because some people live off of the state, but in there you get a tablet, and it's real old school. It's kind of like a clear, like it looks like a Game Boy,
Okay.
and you can send emails and pictures through it.
No.
But I could only send them to, like, you have to be approved on my list. So I would send them to my girl. My girl would forward me stuff. We would talk on the phone, and like all my phone calls, like I paid somebody to go get the phone for me in prison because I had to make phone calls 3 times a day. So like it it would cost me like $50 a week to pay a dude to go get the phone, so that every time it was crazy. I would call it like the Stampede. So like if horse racing, how like when they ring the bell and everybody runs out, it's
Mhm.
like that in prison with the phones. So like a side comes out at a time. So when that door pops, like whoever gets there first, like that's it. Well,
Yeah.
if you're all the way in the back, you're beat. So
Yeah.
that was my move. But I would do 3-way calls with customers. I would, if there was a fire and they happened, you have to put them out. And there were things where I had to make a phone call, like, you had to make an appearance to somebody. So we did our damn best, man. You know,
That is
uh,
crazy. That is
yeah,
absolutely crazy.
it is.
Very
It's
cool though. I
nuts.
mean, just being able to even sustain the little bit that was sustained and run some of that and do some of that operations. Given, I mean, just I think the overall environment of it, like you were saying, that stampede effect of it. I mean, what does that do? I'm thinking too, just like in terms of my point of view, I'm thinking, what does that do to like your mental psyche? You got all these people running around crazy. You got all these crazy people yelling and screaming and whatever while you're trying to take a phone call with a customer. Like,
So in my heart, bro, I always knew I never should have been where I was. Like, and
yeah,
my shit's public. It's online.
yeah,
Anybody can look it up. Um, I always knew I should have won the trial, and that, like I never should have went away, and it was never part of my plan. But it happened, right? And you know, I remember even to this day, they're like, yeah, guilty. And I'm like, oh my God, like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, and they came back
yeah,
3 times and couldn't make a decision. So when that happened, I'm just like, damn, I just lost like faith in whatever. So when I went to prison, dude, like that sucked the first few months. But then I'm like, all right, we're here. There's shit that's got to go on,
how do we move forward?
yeah, how do we just get past this? Like the appeal's gonna happen. Like, we gotta do something. And I just read a lot of books, man. Like Tim Ferriss, 4 Hour Work Week,
Yeah.
Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich.
Mhm.
Dude, I mean, you name it. I left a ton of books in prison. I didn't want to bring any of that juju home. Um,
Sure.
and I've like rebought those books out on the street. Sounds funny, but if you were ever in this scenario, which I hope you're not, you would do the same thing. But a
Absolutely.
lot of those books, I mean, I would read and I would just manifest, what I want, what I wanted it to look like. How I wanted my life to look like. It wasn't even just a business. It's a lot of it is really mental. And just every day I would wake up and I'd be like, man, this place is so crazy. Like I just can't believe this is real. And it would definitely get the best of me at some points. Like you're like, man, this is never gonna end. Like I'm gonna do all 4 or 5 of these years. Like I'm never gonna. And sometimes you're like, I'm gonna beat this shit. So it really it was a lot of mental stuff, a lot of days where you just sleep and then days where you're reading and making notes and manifesting and planning and
So let me ask
eight.
you, I'm curious too. So one thing I think really benefited me, I went to the University of Buffalo for 2 years, and obviously this does not compare at all, to going to prison for 18 months. But I went there mostly for wrestling, and the culture on the team was very very twisted. It was I can't even begin to. Nobody will ever imagine what you would think of like a sports team in a Division I school. Like how bad could it really be? It was pretty effed up. The
Sure,
one year we went
sure.
from 37 team members down to like 16 because everybody quit and got ran off the team, or me and one other person actually had the balls to transfer. Um, but while I was there, I spent a lot of time by myself. Like there was weeks where sometimes I wouldn't speak to a single person except maybe like singing a song in the car because like everybody hated each other that much. I spent a lot of time with my own thoughts doing a lot of the same things. Do you feel like in a lot of ways like that time where you had with your own thoughts, visualizing what you wanted, working on yourself, do you feel like that has been a big benefit to you now later in your career?
Yeah, because I wouldn't have if I had been on the street. Not saying I wouldn't get to where I'm at. Like I look at it this way. If I hadn't gone to prison, I think I'd be where I'm at right now anyway. And I truly, again, I do believe that. I mean, before I went away, I did $500,000 that year. Like
Yeah.
it's not like I didn't have something
You knew how
going
to sell.
already.
Yeah, absolutely. You knew what you're doing.
So like I would have learned and took like the gradual pace. Like there's a painter that I know, he's my age, we're friends. And literally we're the exact same, only he's just gone the gradual, like, he's climbing the ladder. And
Sure.
with me, I've had to hit the reset button a couple times where I'm literally starting at zero. So for me, it was personal, right? Like I felt personally attacked. Like I was wronged. Like they threw
Yeah,
me away
literally.
and had no reason to do so for something where somebody put themselves in that situation. Like I was where I was supposed to be. You know what I mean? This guy jaywalked, and that's like huge, right? Um, so with all that being said, man, like um, sitting by yourself, taking that personal time, like I wouldn't have done that on the street. I wouldn't have sit and put 18 months in. I read probably 25 books, like,
Yeah.
and they weren't all business books, like some were BS books. But that helped me definitely fast track my thought process when I came home. Like thinking bigger than what I was actually doing. And like, yeah, you know
Yeah.
what? You may have said you wanted to work for somebody else when you came home, but that's not what you just trained yourself 18 months to learn what to do.
Sure.
So look, I'm thankful for how everything played out. And it's easier for me to say that because of where I sit today.
Of course.
Do I wish it didn't happen? Yes. Like, I don't wish anything like that. Like, there was some real dark times with that whole experience. Um, but I'm here. It's made me who I am. I've got a good story. I've got a happy ending. It's a work in progress day by day. And a lot of it, that I thank where I am sitting right now as quickly as I got here is from going away, right?
Yep.
Because to be able to hit the reset button from zero and literally in under 24 months do almost, $2.5, $3 million in sales is, in revenue really is fantastic. And it's a 7 percentile, I think I've seen that like businesses do revenue like over 7 figures or 7 figures or over. It's like 7% or something. Um, so that feels good, man. You know, you have a little bit of a gift, you know, and if I have something good out of all this stuff like that occurred that was so terrible, then that's what I'm most fortunate for is really that.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. My 2 years at Buffalo were definitely like my very, on my own version. Not to
sure,
compare by any means, but we're
sure.
very dark years, and I often feel the same way. That in a lot of ways that's helped me a lot. While I would never wish it upon anybody. Um,
Isolation is isolation, right? Like and people don't understand, like when you're used to texting, when you're used to going to a phone, when you're used to, you know, just, you may not like your mom but going to see your mom, right? Even like whatever it may be, the little things like that, when you're taken out of your environment, you're put somewhere, even like Buffalo, like if that was
we
something
weren't
you
we
may have.
weren't allowed to go home for holidays. Like I saw my entire family like
But
one
did
day
you
a
make
year
that
for
choice? Like, did
Christmas.
you make the
No,
choice to go to?
we were you were pretty much forced. If you didn't, you were getting harassed and
Okay.
messed with enough until you quit. Not to make comparisons, but
No,
yeah.
but it's something that's against your will. If it's against, listen, if it's against your will and isolation, I mean, those are two things that, from a perspective of a man, like you can't control that. And as men, right, even as just human creatures, we are always have the need to feel like we need to control what we have going on in our lives. So when you can't walk out of a door and tell somebody to go F themselves, you don't feel great. You know,
Yeah.
you feel small. You feel, you know, like an animal. And everybody, you know, that's what you say about prison, you know, boarding school, private schools, things where you're sent away as kids that our parents do terrible things to us. I mean, you know, I
No,
get
I
it,
feel
man.
it. I feel it. Yeah.
It's all hand in hand. You know, there's levels to it for sure. I mean, even where I was versus other prisons. I mean,
Of course. There's
I
always
could
levels
be
to it.
considered like being at like Buffalo, whereas there's prisons that, are doing, mice are doing push-ups. I mean, it's
But I
there's
find
levels.
that's why I wanted to ask though, because I find with a lot of the people I know, a lot of the very successful people I know, is that they had a couple dark years. They had some trauma-filled experiences that in a lot of ways helped them become the person they are today that is successful. So I wanted to pick your brain on it. I think it's valuable. Not to run from those things, but figure out how to use them now in the current season you're in.
So I want to be very honest with you. It's very important because anybody who goes through anything traumatic, whether it could be a loss of a loved one or a breakup or whatever, your house burns down, it's anything sentimental. When I came home from prison, it was such a high, right? Like, wow, I won the appeal. And then it was like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, I'm free. And then it was like, okay, I've got this money and then I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this. And I rode this high. And probably about a year ago, I like crashed and burned, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
I'm home, already made the money. I bought $130,000 Audi. Like, I live in a penthouse apartment.
Yeah.
I live well. Like I eat great. I go on exotic trips. I've been, different places.
Yeah.
So dissatisfied with my life and like miserable. And like you sit and you're like, wow, that sounds pretty freaking crazy. But I never processed what happened, right? It was always like a fight for your life, fight for your freedom, fight to get out,
Mm-hmm.
fight to get back on top, fight to build your business back up. But there was never a time for me to like heal my own, like what I went through, right? Like the actual loss, losing my own things, selling my own things, people walking out of my life, the damage to your integrity from losing a trial, and then feeling like that mental pressure that you have to prove to everybody that that's not
Yep.
who you were. And I really lived under that microscope, and really just as of recent, man, like I think I sat on a bottle of antidepressants probably for like 8 months before I even had the balls to be like, man, I should probably take these, because you're in a dark place, but you don't want to admit you're in a dark place. And
Sure.
then I did that. And then like I just so happened, luckily, like with our business and like painting, like you meet so many dope people. And I was in like this therapist's house and she was funny, and like she's definitely got her own fucked up problems, but she's a professional therapist. She can fix
Sure.
somebody else. She may not be able to fix herself, but so like as a joke, I was like, yeah, I you probably can't fix me. And she's like, oh, well, what's wrong? So anyhow, we went and had lunch, and she put me on to a coach who deals with some of the issues that I have, and some of the trauma that I've gone through. And now I've been with all that and antidepressants for like the past like 6 months, and I feel the best I've ever felt. And it's much more enjoyable, these things that I have, and I can enjoy them without feeling like they're going to be taken from me or that they're not
Yeah.
mine. So it's all gradual. Like, it takes time. So even though like the success and everything was there, just because all that stuff, like I fast forwarded it, I wasn't where I mentally probably
Needed to
should have
be.
been.
Yeah.
And people will say to you, they'll be like, well, why'd you do it? Like, why'd you go so fast? Why'd you put yourself through that? Why'd you sacrifice? Well, that's what I wanted to do. Like, I felt like I had to make up for that lost time.
And I feel
did it.
like now it has flipped from having to prove like people wrong and prove that you could do it because you were wrong to now like proving yourself and continuing just to be a better version of you every day.
Yeah. So yes, I'm much more relaxed. Now it's like I don't have to prove anything. Like, and to a degree, right? Like, I don't like to get lazy, right? I don't want to throw myself off and be different than what I was. Like, I want to keep that edge about me, but just do it in different ways, work in different ways, work smarter in different ways, use resources. I mean, there's things with you, drip jobs with Tanner, the apps on the iPhone, different things that just have simplified the business over the past few years that, I've been able to, even as a solo owner, like I don't have any partners, I don't have any relatives involved, like I'm my own entity. So, and being somebody who has a problem with controlling everything because so much was out of my control, I micromanage. So,
Yeah.
think about it. I'm doing 7-figure sales by myself, answering the calls, the estimates, running the jobs, the scheduling, the color consults, everything.
I remember
all
when you
by
first started
myself.
with us, you were really overwhelmed.
I was completely by myself. And I literally, again, within the past 6 months, I got an office person. She works remotely. I got some help. So it just was, I did things in an unorthodox way, but I had the dogs, my gatekeepers, my 20-pound babies. Although we did things in a very unorthodox way, I had the plan, right? Like, no coach or mentor or teacher is going to tell you, hey, you need to do it this way, right? Or you should follow this process. And, processes are for maybe people who don't have a process or no plan. But I always kind of saw the vision like, all right, I'm going to make this major move here. And this is going to, get me 3 steps closer, over those little baby steps. And I would just sacrifice the time to make those power moves, man. And
Yeah.
That's how I did it so quickly.
You were always planning a couple steps ahead. Yeah.
Just big leaps, man.
Yeah, no, it's what it's all about. It's fascinating. And I asked because I feel like I had a similar transition as well, where I dropped out of school and it was very much building from a place of spite of like, I'm going to prove people wrong. I'm going to prove my parents I can do this. I'm going to prove all this type of stuff. And that only got me so far. And then it's like, it had to switch to building, no longer running away from something bad, but running towards something better. Right. Which was a really powerful shift I had to have. And it sounds like maybe you went through the same thing.
Agreed. I couldn't agree with you more. And yours, same thing, comes from a family place. It comes from teachers, comes from people who doubt you, people who make fun of you. There's things we carry as people where you don't forget certain things, and they drive us to be a better version of what we don't want to be. Right. So I totally agree with you in that regard.
So I know we could go on this spot for hours.
Yeah.
But I want
to. It's a pathfinder.
Well, more than that, dude. What I want to look at, I'm sure everybody's wondering too. Like, wait a second, you guys have talked about some great stuff, but 0 to 3 million in sales in 2 years from starting with nothing and just 12 grand in the bank.
Right.
Like you mentioned how you kind of blew up the sales and marketing side of it. Obviously, I know you had some ad agency horror stories, but like, how do you do that in 2 years from a sales and marketing point of view? Like, what did you do? What was the secret?
Honestly, the secret is consistency. and the obsession of always getting back to people, even if you don't want to answer them. If it's at a time where you're like, oh, they shouldn't be texting me right now. It's past 7 o'clock. That attitude, no, you're not. You're not going to get to seven figures.
Yeah.
This was the attack dog barking.
I love
Okay.
it.
So that's, and I'm up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm pacing, answering emails, just kind of, again, giving people that like big corporate feel, like, kind of like where you came from, that appointment setter, following a script. And I just train myself to become robotic with email responses where they're short and sweet, get the job done, get the point across, not wasting time. I don't care about, talking about, the micro little things. Like, let's just get to the bread and butter and really just fast track those processes. Copy and paste, saving that kind of stuff, and then reduplicating it. I do a lot of that to this day. And that has been very helpful in that success. With text and email and everything, like, you don't have to call anybody. You don't have to deal with them. You can send them a message, even if you can't talk about the issue or the situation, just an acknowledgement. Hey, I got your message. I'm busy. Can I reach out tomorrow?
Yep.
Yeah. Just so they know that somebody saw it. And with that, doing what you say you're going to do, right? Part of the consistency is, if you told Mrs. Jones, I'm going to call you tomorrow at 12 to 12:30, call her between 12 and 12:30. And if you're the type of person like I am, where you mean in your heart you want to call at 12, but you're running around and it may not be till 12:15, just give her the window. And
let them know.
Don't make it unreasonable. Like nobody wants to hear 2 hours. Like, we're not in that day and age right now where 2 hours is acceptable. Like, time is money right now. So that 30 minutes, I think, is like, if you can't make that happen, you've got to sit down and kind of reevaluate your structure just from the start, because this is the time. And that a half hour, I think, is going to get to a point where that's unacceptable, right? Where it's like,
it's always evolving.
Right. So I think that's what's going to keep everybody on their toes. And that's what I think people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, when I was young, weren't mastering.
Understand.
Yeah, they weren't doing it. I mean,
you think about the reputation that like painters and contractors and home service companies get, and then you saying, essentially, I'm going to be completely client focused, and I'm going to make sure they always have communication, even if it's 7 p.m., even if it's after hours. And just being, within reason, but being obsessed with that. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? Well,
here's what I do, man. You want to hear something funny? And I say this to everybody. If a customer texts me past 9, I text them before 6, right? Because I'm up. I'm up early. So if you're going to text me while I'm going to sleep, I'm going to text you when I'm waking up. And nobody's ever given me any crap about that. Like, oh, why did you text me so early? Like, if it's about their project, they don't care. Right. And if that's the time that you're up and that's on your mind and you can shoot something out, do it. Like, you can't get in the way of that thought process. Like, and then you get sidetracked, and then it's 9, then it's 10, then you forgot. Then they're like, whoa, what happened? It's like, you should just do it. Do it when it's there, especially in the building stages. Like, right now, I'm real comfortable, right? I work
you
from
have an
home
office
mostly.
person. Exactly. Yeah.
I have an office person who works from home, and I work from home, and nobody sits in the office. So but we worked for that, right? Like, you have to get to that point, but getting to that point, you've got to be those two people at the same time.
You got to be the gritty entrepreneur. Yeah.
Yeah. In order to get there, you got to wear those hats simultaneously. And so all of that umbrella with consistency is that's the fast track, man. I can't say it any simpler than that. I mean, I was doing that before we had fancy apps and, ad agencies, and, that's the truth.
Yeah. No, I think it's really valuable. I mean, it's something, I've talked a lot with, some of the big guys in our space about. It's like, hey, what's the biggest opportunity? What's the biggest thing a lot of painting companies are missing? And a lot of times we see it often just comes down to exactly that, like the grit. Like, sometimes it's exactly that. Having somebody tell you, like, look, you just got to get tough and be 2 or 3 people for a few months until you can build enough revenue to hire this person and have a need for this. So.
Yeah, and
Undervalued.
guys, it's guys want to be sit where I'm sitting, right? Like I wanted to sit where I'm sitting,
Yeah.
and it never felt possible. It never felt real. It never felt like I could get there. When you compound those hours on top of months, on top of years, and it took me 2.5 years to tell you I'm sitting and working from home remotely, 50% of my time, and the other half I'm, estimating, and I am out in the field because I have to be. I got to see projects. But
Sure.
if you don't work from that like 5 a.m. to like 7 p.m.,
You're never going to get there.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you think working an 8-hour day is that's because you own the business, that's what it's going to take. That's not it. I mean, it's just not. You need to work 16-hour days and double up 6 days a week and do it.
Not in the building stages if you want to move fast. Exactly.
Well, look, success looks different to everybody, right? Like somebody will be like, "Well, dude, I don't want to work 16-hour days, 6 days a week." Well, then you don't want to do $1 million business. I mean, and you have to be real with that, right? You have to be real with your lifestyle and what you want to have, what you want success to look like for you. Guy may only want to do $250,000, and have 4 guys. Well, cool, man. That's real easily achievable. Tweak a couple things. But a guy who wants to turn it up and really get down into it and like take over and dominate, well, that's a different breed. That's
And it's
that's
easy
something different.
these days. I know it's very easy to get kind of wrapped up in the facade of everything where it's like, you feel like almost like you have to want to have $1 million company. That's what everybody's preaching and everybody's talking about. But exactly, I think what you said is really valuable of like being real with yourself and being like, hey, like maybe I'm okay with just doing 500,000 a year and just, only having one helper and owning the job. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the pros and the cons. And that's what I value more. Like that is okay. Right. Like no, that's allowed.
It is, and I think that people right now are intimidated with social media. God, if you went and looked on my Facebook page, you'd see me. You'd be like, "Whoa, dude, does this guy really paint?" Like, no, yeah, I do, but there's an ugly side to it, right? Like with that pretty stuff came a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody, and there's days where I'm like, man, it was simpler back then. But then there's days where I can drive in my Audi to the office or take a trip, and I'm like, yeah, it's worth it, man. Like this is what I sacrificed for. Like I fought for this. Like I wanted it, and so I can say that. I can say that it's for me. It's what I wanted. And even being here now, I'm evolving still, and there's other things I want to do. You and I have talked about. There's things that I'll continue to build upon to where it'll be past painting, right? Where it'll be a company that I own and I am separated from, and I'll be doing other things. And that's my goal. That's my idea of success. And
Exactly. But defining that is different for everybody. And that's valuable.
Yeah. Look, some guys want to be a family man and have families and work from home. Like I don't have kids, right? So that's a big thing. I can dedicate the time because I don't have kids. But some guys, they want to spend more time with their kids and they just want to kind of automate things. And like, that's something that, again, can be easily tweaked and strived for, I think, quite effortlessly, depending upon, who your mentors are, what your talents are. But $1 million business revenue, it's not for everybody, man. It's every day is a plot twist.
Yep.
The more volume you do, the more Karens you meet, the more things, the more fires you have to put out. I mean, it's not that anybody's doing anything wrong. It's
just that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, if you're a guy who works with a few guys, maybe you have one problem a year. Well, if you times that by 4, well, you've got 4 problems a year. I mean, it's going to happen. So it just depends on how you can overcome those things.
So I want to hear about this as well, right? You've scaled up very fast. Your story's incredible. It's been a minute because we've been working together for a little while. So I only remember parts of the stories, but you had some ad agency like horror stories, like some of the craziest I've heard. Walk me through like the crazy ad agency experience you've had, how you got to us, what it's been like, where just that whole story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have grown up with a guy who owned like a Vail pack, like a Clipper coupon pack.
Yeah.
And I've known him for the past 10 years. Like when I was young and running the detailing shop and had my painting business, I would run coupons in the Vail packs. So, he finally got into the digital age. And I started out with them. And it came up to like winter time and they just weren't listening to like my needs, what I wanted. And I wanted to put more content and ads out. And they're like, well, everybody else is pulling money back. And I'm like, I'm not everybody else. Like, that's not what I asked you. I am asking you to spend the money. I left them, man. I'm like, it was dead of winter. And I would have my like, I'm shaking in my boots. And I'm trying to think of something nice to say because that's like how dramatic it was. I've got, 12 guys, and I'm like, man, these guys are going to be out of work. So I find like a real big marketing company in Idaho, and customer service top notch. But that's what I was paying for, was like multiple people to do I respect an ad agency and what you guys do. With my knowledge and how much I've been involved with the marketing, I know like there's only so much involvement you have until a campaign is really kind of just nurturing itself. You're building upon it, you're growing on it. You can step away from it a little bit more and more as it evolves on its
There's
own.
more involvement at the beginning, getting the creative, everything organized, and there's tweaks and adjustments along the way, but it's 100% more effort in the beginning.
Exactly. So with some of these other guys, man, it's like always something. And it's like, then we're having these meetings, and then I felt like we would have these meetings, and like then we would be like rerouting kind of like areas I wanted to go, like aspects with the company. And I think that what I wish they would have done was like tell me no. Like
Yeah.
like, hey, don't do that. Or hey, I don't think we should do that. Like and I think with like your team, I think there's been times where I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? And like, no, I don't think so. And I
We'll tell you
that.
No.
You have to tell somebody no. Like I tell my customers no. Like when I think a color is going to look pitiful, like no way we're not doing that. Like,
Yeah.
So that was like one of the biggest things I probably could. But dude, they were making banana money. Like all in, I was probably about 12.5 a month with them.
Crazy.
Between management and ad spend. And it just was like like I felt like I was going to work to pay them.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a learning curve. And then how I came to find you guys was through Tanner and his software, and just looking just looking for a change in the process of what I was doing from a communication standpoint with my customers as well as a marketing standpoint, because I just knew for the amount of money I was spending, I could throw that budget myself and, do better with what they were giving us. So, when you and I met, I was skeptical, you guys
were rightfully so though. Like I remember you were very skeptical, but when I broke down some of your experiences and your numbers, I'm like, dude, I get it. Like I would be too. Because with what you're spending, what you're getting back, I was like, yeah, I'm not even sure you were like barely profitable or something. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, we weren't on the right side of the scale that time of year, and exterior season when it's busy, yeah, anybody can be on that side of the scale.
Barely profitable in terms of the marketing, like in terms of what you're spending, like
it's just nothing was coming back the way it should have been. Like we weren't getting the volume of leads that I felt we should have been getting for the amount of money that was being spent. And I could see where all the money was going. Like nothing was hidden. I knew every dollar that went out. And I'm just like, this is just something's not adding up here. And I pulled out. And I don't even think we really had anything agreed yet, you and I just was over them. I talked with Tanner. He was like, yeah, you got to check out Eric. And that was it, man. And I know you were kind of newer at the time. We're up and coming, and everything's been great. I got nothing bad to say about, I think has it been a year? It's been a year.
We're coming up on it. I don't think quite yet, but we're coming up on it.
It's got to be right there.
I think we're at like 10 months, something like that.
All right, we're close. So, but yeah, that's how we got here, man. We went with your minimum recommended ad spend budget. And
Yeah,
I
like
think
double that or something. Yeah.
yeah, I think we just now increased, and we have another company, and you guys are doing that company. So yeah, man, everything is on your guys' end with what you're doing is fantastic. I
Was
have
there any
no
like one big difference you noticed? Like, especially for maybe those other people listening that like they're interviewing ad agencies, they're looking at marketers. Like, was there any big difference you noticed into like why you saw a lot more success with us versus this other one?
I came to learn. I think the success that I am finding with you is solely due to the volume, right? Like
Mm.
you're working primarily with painters, and you're micro targeting those keywords, and you really honing in on that niche service, which I don't think the other company. I
Sure.
mean, so they said they were, but I don't think the stats really showed it. I mean, I think it's pretty interesting to see the amount of leads that we get from your campaign generation. I don't know how you do it, but no, I'm happy with it, and I told Vanessa, and this was before Nick left. So one of the leads that we had got from you, probably about I don't know, 6 months ago, and so it was early on. Like we just were getting crazy jobs from you know, like let's say 5 leads came in or 6 leads came in. Like one of those leads would be like a stupid lead, like a $30,000 job, $40,000 job,
Yeah.
and
Well, I
we
remember,
were
dude, there
getting
was
them.
wasn't there one month where like I don't even you weren't spending what you're spending now. You're spending like 2 or 3 grand a month or something, and you landed like 200,000 that same
Yeah, we
month.
did.
I was
Yeah, we
like you were
did.
literally at like a 1% cost of marketing, and I was like, is this even real right now? Like I almost
Yeah,
couldn't
we
believe you. Like
So that one, so one of the jobs we got was like 105,000 from one of the Facebook
it's
leads, and
insane.
then they referred us. They were so happy with the job, so I'm doing their friends right now. We're there today. We just started like a week or two ago, like 115. So all of that off of that $3,000 a month, and that was 200K just off 2 jobs. Um,
Insane.
which is insane. And look, it's a combination, right, of your micro targeting and experience and what you guys
And you
do.
being great at sales and yep.
There's sales, there's branding, there's consistency with that first phone call impression, and so there's a lot that goes into those numbers. Those numbers, they are amazing numbers. Don't get that twisted, but it really does take the you
The
know
full effort.
you gotta have that full circle, appearance that you're this brand. If people aren't asking you like, hey, are you a franchise? I feel like you're not doing it like right.
Yeah.
Like, because that's my biggest compliment. Like, oh, you think we're that big? Like, we look that good. And I think that that's kind of a goal that like there's nothing wrong with using your last name, right? As a business owner. But like, if you use your last name as your marketing company, like, how well do you think that people would take you serious as a marketer if you're just using your last name?
It's a lot harder
And
to
I
disassociate yourself from the brand and eventually go move on and start other companies and stuff if you want to. Much
Right,
harder.
exactly. So I always like I try not to offend guys with it, but I'm like, bro, no, your last name, like that's great. Your mom loves you, everybody loves you, but nobody cares. Nobody cares about the last name. Like, come up with something. Like our name is Brushmasters. You know how many Brushmasters there are? I don't care.
Yeah.
Because we do and the money and the volume that I'm doing is only so much I can do anyway. So again, it doesn't matter. There's plenty out here. So I always say, man, forget the last name, forget the ABC thing. Do find a name, find something generic, that you can just kind of brand and make a logo that doesn't
Yep.
involve your freaking name. I think that is like one of the biggest things you could do early on, whether it's in a rebrand or a startup, to really set yourself apart from anybody else who's also doing the last name thing. It's just like, I just think it sets you apart right away.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. I mean, and like you said, it's all the little details, right? By no means have you seen the success you've had because Pathfinder just came in and was a magic pill. Like you knew how to sell, you had drip
Right,
jobs, right? You had great
right,
communication skills. You
right,
had a brand. You thought about some of these other stuff, and it's all these little pieces coming together to make it work so effortlessly.
right.
So I love
Exactly.
it, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
Just to bring it home because I know we could talk for hours. I'm super curious, but there's been so much good stuff in here. If you had to give like one piece of advice, like one golden nugget to that painting company that's just starting out, looking to grow, looking at your story, and it's like, I want to get to that point, right? We were talking about it earlier where you were sitting there looking at people where you're currently at. Like to those people looking at where you're currently at, saying, I want to get there. Like, what's that one big piece of advice you'd give them?
Your contract is like the key. So I never had a contract starting out, and my dad was always big on like, well, do everything as if you're going to get sued in the end because everybody's out to get you, and like cross your T's and dot your I's, that kind of thing. So
Sure.
I started doing that, like, oh well, any unforeseen or unexpected circumstances will incur additional costs. It's like an umbrella, like I would do like a 2 or 3 liner, but that's not really a contract. I mean, it's something, but it's not a contract. My contract right now is like 5 pages, and it's everything like that a customer has done wrong to me, like you know not getting a deposit on time, not getting your final payment on time, leaving bags of trash, picking up dog poop in the yard, not putting away their personal effects when you come in to start an interior job. Like I set prices for like, breaching those
If
things.
this happens, it's X. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many times, time and time again, where I've had to be like, hey, in the contract, it says this, and you agree to it, and um, it sounds like silly, right? Like, oh, it's got to be like that. If you don't want to lose money, it's got to be like that.
Yeah. I
Like
mean, that's what a
it,
professionalized company does at the end of the day. Like,
look, nobody's going into Walmart. You know what I mean? These customers, the way they treat, a painter or a service professional, they don't do that at Wawa and Walmart and Target and like come in
yep.
and haggle price and, oh, well, I said I wanted this. Like, you didn't go to Walmart and buy a red shirt and then bring it back and say, oh, well, I thought it was blue. Like,
Right.
it's not how it goes. So, that in and of itself again separates you professional wise, but also protects you, protects your money, protects the food you put on your table. um, it's the number one thing that if you don't have one, you have to sit down and make one. You can have an attorney review it, somebody could do it. I think there's online services. I know Tanner has some stuff in
I would
his
say there's a
strip
lot of good
jobs.
resources out there.
Yeah, but it's definitely a must-have to help build the brand if you're going to go for that route.
Yeah. No, I love it. And I mean, I think that's really, really tactical. I like it a lot. And I think, it falls under that umbrella that you always hear, me and Tanner and Slavic and so many people talk about, which is ultimately just professionalizing the industry, right? Just like you said, you wouldn't go into Walmart and expect that. Nobody would treat Walmart
Right,
like that and professionalizing
right.
your company. So I love it, dude. We could go over hours. This has been so much fun. We're
Yeah,
definitely
man,
gonna have to do this again. Like we'll
for
we'll
sure,
definitely have to have you back on for number two. Because I know we
for
only touched
sure.
the surface of some of this stuff. But I appreciate you jumping on, dude. If people like wanna find you, kind of what you're all about, like what's the best way for people to connect with you online?
I'm hard to find, man. I really am. You know that. So you can find me on Facebook. Our company is called Brushmasters XP. So you can find us there. And then my Facebook is G Park Hill. So it's G Park and then space Hill. So they can find me there, message me. And you could tag me, I guess, when you
Yeah, we'll make sure it
post the
gets
link.
tagged, links, and all that.
Yeah, but yeah, man. Anybody ever needs anything, any help, questions, contract help, want to exchange war stories, man, I'm here.
Yeah, no, you certainly got
So
your share, dude. You have an incredible story. What you've built is absolutely incredible, and a lot of wisdom to share. So
appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. But look, man, you too, man. Keep killing it with the ads and keep making people money. And That's that.
That's the name of the game. Well, I appreciate you
Yes,
jumping
sir.
on, dude, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Sounds good, man. Have a good one.
All right.